Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and in this short tutorial I'm going to show you how to paint tree branches. So I'll be using Mars Black acrylic paint, and I will be demonstrating this with two different brushes. So I have a number 4 round brush and I have a 1/4 inch angle brush. These are Royal and Langnickel Moderna brushes. The angle brush is really nice because you can use it to get the really small branches. I'm demonstrating this also on a sheet of watercolor paper. So the watercolor paper holds acrylics really nicely because it's watercolor paper, and acrylics are water-based paints. But you can do this on scratch paper or in a sketchbook. And this is Mars Black acrylic paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load my palette with the Mars Black, and water is a really necessary thing for the branches because the water will help your paints flow a little bit better. Mars Black tends to be a really thick color right out of the tube, and the water will help it to thin it out a bit and get it to flow. So we're going to do a branch that is starting kind of on the left side of the paper, and it's going to stem out into two different branches and have smaller branches. I'm going to start with my number 4 round brush, and I'm going to load it into the water. I'm going to kind of distribute that water into that black and kind of drag it out, and you can see already that paint has been thinned down a bit. Just by thinning it down a bit like that is going to allow your branch to be nice and flowy, versus if I just had a big chunk of paint on my brush and didn't allow it to thin out a little bit. Your branch may run dry real fast, it may be thick and chunky, and it may be hard to control. So I'm going to start on the left, and this is the number 4 round brush, by the way. I'm not using the angle brush yet, but I suppose you can also do the whole thing with the angle brush, but I'm doing this with the round, and I'm going to start with the base of my branch, and so it's nice and thick at the branch, at the base of it, and it's going to get thinner. So I always refer to this as a triangle because it literally is a triangle. It starts out thick on the left and it gets thin, and I'm going to allow it to get thinner. So you see it right there how it kind of ran dry. Just dipped my brush in a little bit of water and dragged it out into the black a little bit, and that allowed it to flow. So when I get that really thin line, I'm releasing pressure on my brush. So starting out, it's kind of firm. Letting go, I'm releasing the pressure. And by releasing the pressure on the brush, your stroke is going to get thinner. So right here, I'm just making the base of the branch sort of thicker, and when I want my branch to get thinner, I'm going to kind of release pressure, and it's going to allow that branch to get thinner. So loading it in your palette, you can kind of just drag it out a little bit on the palette after you dipped it into the water, and then I'm making this branch sort of thicker, and I'm allowing it to get thinner. There's a lot of smaller branches that I'm going to demonstrate, and I'm not going to demonstrate that with the round brush. I'm going to switch to a 1/4 inch angle brush. So this angle brush is really nice for creating very thin branches, and so this is the Moderna Royal and Langnickel 1/4 inch angle brush. You can get other brands that have similar 1/4 inch angle brush. It doesn't even have to be a 1/4 inch. It could be 3/8 of an inch or something a similar size. So I'm going to load it in the water, and I'm going to load my brush in it by dragging it out. And I'm just going to kind of make some strokes on my palette here to show you. But angle brushes are nice because you can use the full width to create a thick stroke, or you can turn it on its side and use the side of it to create your thin stroke. And if you make it so that left part that's sticking up, the highest part of that angle, if that's where I am painting, that's going to create your really thin stroke where that top of that angle is. So then I could take that concept and apply it to my branches. So my branches are going to get a lot thinner here. So I'm just taking that angle part and creating the thin line. So I made that part of the branch split into two. And then I'm going to take this and kind of go down with it Again, I'm using the brush on its side, and I'm making sure that my bristle that's touching the paper right there, it's just that top part of the angle brush that's creating that thin line. And then I'm not holding it very firmly, I'm holding it very light. If I pressed really hard, like I did there, it's going to create that thicker stroke. But you can use that angle brush to its advantage. So you can use the full width of the brush to start your stroke of the branch out, and then turn it on its side to create the thinner line. So over here it starts out kind of thick, and it gets thinner too, and it branches off. And then you can just take this brush and really kind of create more little branches. I ended up doing a lot of branches on this one, and it's kind of fun and relaxing just to sit there and paint branches and not really think about it, because we're not doing a full-fledged painting here, we're just practicing branches. So it's super relaxing, not stressful at all. And then if you want to change the style of your branches, you can kind of make them go kind of curvy if you wanted, and not so angular. And then remember, the base of some of these branches, the branch part is thicker, so you would use the full width of the brush to make your base thicker, but then for the thinner lines you would make sure that you turn it on its side to use that very tip of the brush. So overlapping some of your branches can create some interesting branch-like formations, make it look more natural with some of the branches that overlap. And that's the basic concept of painting these kinds of branches. That angle brush is super helpful for creating those thin lines, and I recommend practicing this on a sketchbook or sort of spiral bound mixed media pad. And there's lots of other things you can do with this concept. You could have your branches kind of go around a moon or a sun. If you're doing a whimsical painting, you can add brown and white highlights and texture to some of the bigger branches. But it pretty much, this is all the basic concept of painting branches. So that's it for my demonstration. Thanks for watching.